Good evening, everyone. Sunday night, and I am just back from our spring break trip with Post Tennis to Orlando, and my experience with the business of sport this week was quite interesting as I got to spend quite a bit of time at the new United States Tennis Association National Campus in Orlando, and it is kind of like the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs, except specific to tennis. And it's just amazing to see what national sports organizations will do. This is a facility with about 100 courts, a special wing for college tennis. The technology that we were able to use as coaches was just amazing. The training facility for professional players, which is to hopefully establish American tennis at the top level again, was just really fascinating. And obviously, I was immersed in it as a coach, but I also really was very interested in looking at it from the sport economic and the business standpoint of what this could mean, and how a national association like the USTA was willing to invest the millions and millions of dollars that went into this facility. I really don't know what it cost. I've got to figure it's in hundreds of millions to do this. It just was an amazing experience, and just to be part of that and to use it, but then to step back and think about it tells us a lot about some of the things we're going to be studying here. Now, this past week, and week two, there were a couple of great discussions going on, and I, not just because I was busy coaching, a lot of it was looked at everything every night and said, boy, this is a discussion I can just let go and see what happens. And particularly interesting, I found, was when people started talking about profitability and should teams maximize their profits, and that's it. We're just a business. We're a profit maximizing entity. And there were a lot of different opinions, and I was really, and most of them were very well thought out, and I really liked that. But one of the, a couple things I found interesting, someone in the class, just forgive me if I don't call you out by name, mentioned the concept of value. Are we making profit, or are we building value? If you were to own a franchise, would you want to make a profit every year, or is the idea that you want to get out and sell at some point in the future for a much greater value than you bought the franchise? Is maybe not that long-term value development more of the economic proposition? And is that what you're working for? And is that necessarily done by working on the short-term profitability? Or is it building the winning attitude, the winning team, the winning product on the field, the winning loyalty of the fans, the willing, that's it. Do you want a loyal, in sports in particular, do you want a satisfied customer, or do you want a loyal customer? These are all very important issues, and I think that a lot of people hit on some very interesting stuff there, and I was very happy to see that. And I did put into a separate discussion thread, and a couple of people ventured in and attempted to answer my semi-trick question, and it wasn't really a trick. It was to try to illustrate something we will touch on a little later, an issue of competitive balance, but to see how it plays out economically. And if you will recall the question I asked, what one regularly scheduled game that's played annually has more value to it than to the winning team, direct economic value to the winning team, than any other? And a couple of you answered, said, well, gee, I thought of that right away. The Super Bowl is what comes to mind first. And then somebody picked up on my hint about global, and then went into things about the English Premier League. That answer was close, but it's not the answer I was thinking of. The answer I'm thinking of, and this is more illustrative of the points that we want to take on and keep learning about, the answer to that is the championship playoff final of the English Football League Championship Division, which is one lower than the Premiership. And the reason is the Premier League is the one we all see on TV and that everybody knows, and everybody knows that's probably the next biggest league in the world, right after the NFL when it comes to economics and money. But this league championship, which is the second division, the next notch down of British football as it is a very interesting game. because they use in the UK and in most nations in their soccer systems a and we'll read about it in a couple of weeks, a system of maintaining competitive balance of promotion and relegation. What that means is the bottom three teams in the top division literally get thrown out and thrown into the second division, and the top three teams in the second division come up and take their place in the top division. And the way they do it in England is the top two teams in the championship are automatically promoted to the Premiership, the Premier League, and the next four have a mini tournament and play off, and the winner of that final gets promoted to the Premiership. And what that means, what comes with that, it is worth more money to that, direct money to that team than anybody else, because it brings them the increased television revenue from being in the top league. It brings them the bigger crowds that come from being in the top league, the bigger competition, the chance to play more international games. It is direct revenue to that team. So it is that game. It's the championship playoff final. That's not to say that it's not the Premier League. It's the game that gets you into the Premier League. It's the game that gets you back in the big leagues. Think of it as if AAA teams in baseball had a chance to play off to get into the major leagues. That game would be worth a lot to them. So it wasn't really a trick. It was just a kind of an illustration of how much that sometimes the on-the-field product helps you generate an opportunity to get to the next level, and that's really what we're trying to talk about. Okay, next week, week 3, we're going to be moving into maybe some a little bit more arcane stuff. We're going to be talking about some legal matters, antitrust, monopoly, okay? And many of you know about this from business law classes, from what you've studied previously in sport management. But as you know, and particularly it started with Major League Baseball, and you read some of the history of it. Professional sports are protected from the monopoly clauses that are in many of our commercial laws, and meaning that they are treated differently. They're exempt from certain legal restrictions. And what I would like us to start considering this week is, are professional sports a monopoly? Remember, what is a monopoly? One seller. They're the only place you can get this product. So let's stick with the NFL, right? As I say, is the NFL a monopoly, or is it really 32 separate businesses banding together to act as a monopoly? Is this fair? Is this reasonable? Is this something we want? These are the kind of issues we'll be exploring this week. And again, I will try to add some material. I have a time blocked out tomorrow to maybe add some things to the class that I will get from the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston. They used to publish a series on sport economics. It's since gone out of circulation. They've taken that webpage down, unfortunately, and I'm going to have to reproduce it in certain ways. I've got the source material from them, and we can put it together, and I'll try getting that back up. So again, great job with the discussion. We're really happy with them seeing. Hope you're getting what you wanted out of this course. Maybe a little more, maybe a little differently than you expected. And again, if there are any questions, please contact me, and I'll be happy to answer them. And we'll go forward from here. You may hear from me again later this week. Okay, thank you.